Hi, this is Rahman Sheikh. Welcome to Fortnightly Railway Transportation Systems podcast. I am the host and railway systems specialist working in this industry for 24 years and counting. This podcast is primarily focused on railway experts who have vast amount of experience and contributed greatly to this amazing industry. This is not a technical seminar but focuses on feel good stories, individual journeys, their success and failures, motivating younger generation to kickstart their career in railways and creating a sense of pride for the railway people who devoted their lives on the most environment friendly public transportation. Dr. Neil Henderson, a transportation expert with a 24-year career at Mott MacDonald, joins us this fortnight. His roles as Major Projects Director, Divisional Railway Director, and Knowledge and Innovation Director showcase his extensive expertise. Neil played a pivotal role in the UK Crossrail project, serving as Mott MacDonald's Program Director and Key Account Director from 2012. Collaborating closely with Crossrail CEO Mark Wilde, he successfully completed the project, now known as the Elizabeth Line, marking Mott MacDonald's 30-year involvement. Building on this experience, Neil became Mott MacDonald's Key Account Director for Europe's largest infrastructure project, High Speed 2, last year. His leadership is characterized by collaborative client engagement, fostering innovation, and promoting societal well-being. Neil champions diversity in the industry, working with organizations like Women in Rail, Women in Transport, and the Black United Representation Network to create opportunities for underrepresented individuals. He values client and team relationships, tailoring experiences to unique needs, and drives sustainable transport solutions, promoting global knowledge, sharing innovation and best practices. Neil elevates Mott MacDonald's ideas and solutions, setting new standards for transformative potential in the global transport sector. Hi Neil, welcome to Railway Transportation Systems podcast.
Hello Rahman, and thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast. It's great to be joining you today. This long list of distinguished people that share their stories with you, for many of them are friends and colleagues, so really pleased to be here today.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for your kind words. Neil, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, sure. As you mentioned in your piece there, in your introduction, I've been with Mott MacDonald for over 20 years now, and I never actually thought I'd be in transport when I was a lot younger. I mean, I really enjoyed trains, and I enjoyed watching aeroplanes and all of those sort of things as any boy would be. But my real passion actually were ships and boats, and I wanted to join my family and join the Royal Navy when I was a lot younger, and even went to university, and I was going to be in the Royal Navy. But in my final year of university, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and that meant I was medically discharged from the Navy. So I was pretty devastated by that, and I had to really carefully think about what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing a degree in civil engineering, and eventually I was offered an opportunity to do a PhD at the University of Scotland in Dundee, which was a complete turnaround from what I was doing. And as being the first person in my family to attend university, I saw this as a huge opportunity, which I took, and I've never looked back. And I joined Mott MacDonald, and one of the largest employee-owned engineering consultancies, in '99, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being part of this global rail and transport family ever since. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, sorry to hear about that diabetic story, but your journey from a childhood interest to Mott MacDonald's is both challenging and rewarding. I'm excited to dwell deeper into these experiences. So over your 24 years of Mott MacDonald, you have held various significant roles. Could you share a pivotal project or accomplishment that stands out as a defining moment in your career, Neil?
Well, I think the pivotal project and the main accomplishment so far has been the 12 years that I spent on the Crossrail project in London. And last year, seeing the Queen open the line was probably one of the proudest days of my professional life. and a great testament to the thousands of people involved in the project over many years. So at that time, it was Europe's largest and most complex infrastructure project, and it allowed me to work with some great people from across the rail sector and across the world. But I suppose in terms of accomplishments, the thing that I'm proudest of is my role in setting up the UK's first technical apprenticeship programme, which has provided opportunity for thousands of young people over many years. And I think I go back to the early days of Crossrail project when there were several major infrastructure projects taking place in London at the same time. We had the London Olympics, we were getting ready for that. But these major projects meant that there was a significant shortage of skilled labour. So what we did in response to that, because of the skilled labour and the general lack of young people joining the engineering profession, we founded the Technical Apprenticeship Consortium in 2010. And this was a group of engineering consultancies in the UK working together to create and promote apprenticeships in the industry. So we established this first scheme with a handful of 16 to 18-year-olds from fairly marginalised backgrounds and marginalised areas in London. And this provided them with an opportunity to build something as an apprentice, particularly in the engineering side. So we started, I think, in Mott MacDonald, I think we had 3 apprentices in 2010. But last year, we had over 250 apprentices in 7 schemes. And actually across the whole consortium, we've had over 1,500 apprentices enter the industry, with several thousand apprentices starting their careers on the Crossrail project. So I think for me that is a great example of how major projects can leave a lasting legacy. And for me personally, it was great to be working with such great young people. So I think that for me is one of the major accomplishments in my career.
It is an amazing achievement, and moreover the Crossrail project was undoubtedly a pivotal achievement, and it's inspiring to hear about the impact it had. On this podcast, we actually heard about this project a couple of times, especially from Mark Wilde. And Neil, your dedication and providing opportunities to young people and addressing the skilled labor shortage is commendable. Especially in this podcast, I have raised this couple of times. Currently in Australia, we are facing a lot of resource scarcity, especially in rail industry, and it's clear that your work has left a significant and lasting legacy in the engineering industry. So Neil, as an innovation director, what strategies do you implement to foster a culture of innovation within Mott MacDonald?
That's a great question, Rahman, and I think you've used a key word there, which is culture. I think I consider innovation, many others consider innovation as the application of new ideas to realise value for our clients, particularly in my sector. So understanding clients' challenges, what keeps them awake at night is really essential. This client-centric culture, which I always really focus in on, is an approach that we adopt to really get together with in-depth domain knowledge to identify new practical solutions for clients. So it's the practical solution to the things that really are really challenging for clients. And so what we've done in Mott MacDonald in particular, we have an innovation framework that this provides a fairly coherent and consistent approach across the whole of our work across the globe, with a focus on local clients, local business context. So what we look for is looking for practical challenges to solve and to discover the most promising ideas. And what we do there is we go through a stage of incubate, or really understand the issue, and then we look to see how we can then upscale that idea to make real outcomes and real value outcomes for our clients. So upscaling and consolidating that, and then hopefully by doing all of that in collaboration with our clients, we can then really take forward not just the client's challenges, but industry as a whole. So I think that whole approach to a framework of ideas, capturing those ideas, incubating those ideas, and upscaling those ideas to practical solutions, to me is the way in which we try and foster that culture of innovation, not just within Mott MacDonald, but within the wider industry.
Wow, client is at the center of the heart. I like the innovation framework which provides a consistent approach worldwide. Even your profile highlights a client-centric approach, Neil. Can you provide an example of how you have effectively tailored solutions to meet clients' unique needs? and challenges?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's something that I am passionate about, putting clients at the center of our business, but not just clients, but the end users. And as in the rail sector in particular, our end users are passengers, the people that use the railway. So by understanding their challenges, we understand our clients' challenges, and by being client centric, we really get to the nub of the issue in terms of really bringing those ideas and solutions, as I mentioned earlier, to help tailor solutions. But I suppose a really good example that I would pick on is again going back to the Elizabeth Line project, or the Crossrail project as it was when we were building it. And I go back to when you mentioned Mark Wilde earlier, joined as the Chief Executive Officer in 2018. We were due to open the Elizabeth Line in December of that year, but clearly that was not going to happen. So there was a lot of angst, there was a lot of dissatisfaction in the country, in the UK, around the fact that this project was late. But we spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time with my team, sitting down with Mark management team and really understanding what the challenges were, sharing with them and listening to what they really needed. So most of this discussion focused on system integration activities, and there was a need to bring experienced people who would commission systems and infrastructure into the project. So we spent a lot of time with the Crossrail team to understand what they wanted to achieve, and we tailored our approach to focus on systems integration, and was able to provide a very experienced person to help supplement that Crossrail team. And this led to them leading the commissioning of the 10 new underground stations. And this worked really well and meant that these stations were delivered in accordance with the new programme. And of course, as we know, eventually the line opened in 2022. So that was an example of where listening, really understanding what your client is wanting, what the challenges are. So I think that for me is a really good example of a client-centric approach.
I do agree. It's not just about offering the latest solutions, but understanding client genuine needs and challenges. Great insights. And the next big project, High Speed to London, is a major project. What key challenges have you encountered in your role as key account director, and how have you addressed them?
Well, as we sit here today in October 2023, the High Speed Rail 2 project is very much in the news here in the UK. There's been a lot of change. So this is a high-speed project new line running from London all the way up to Manchester in the UK. We are currently building the first phase of that project, phase 1, from Old Oak Common up through to Birmingham, the UK's second city. And then the plan was to take the line further north to Manchester. The UK government has just recently announced that they're going to cancel the second phase of that, but that does leave us then with the largest, still a very large project to deliver from London to Birmingham. And the key challenge for this project is its sheer size, scale and complexity. As I mentioned, it's still Europe's largest infrastructure project, even with the removal of phase 2. But it does involve, building over 500 kilometres of high-speed track in some of the densest parts of the UK. And some of the biggest challenges that we've got there is really dealing with stakeholders, people that will be impacted by the construction. At the moment, we've got over 350 construction sites employing nearly 30,000 people on the project. So it's a significantly big project. But again, I think the biggest challenge is all of the data, all of the information that we get from the site and from the design that we're doing, millions and millions of pieces of data that we need to manage and analyze on a daily basis. So the key to addressing those challenges is looking at digital solutions and how we can optimize the design and facilitate that exchange of information to support the delivery of the project on site. So some of the things that we've been doing there to deal with some of these challenges is look at parametric design and standardization. So how can we repeat our designs using standard component catalogs, for example, using digital models to support construction operation. There's another key thing, site setting out, for example, like excavations or embankments, and then using the construction production quantities to inform sustainability and construction. So how can we minimize the amount of material that we use? How can we drive some efficiencies there? So I think for me that the complexity of the job is not so much in the technical engineering, it's more in the volume of data that we have to manage, and that digital approach allows us to identify solutions which are repeatable, we can drive efficient design, manufacture, installation and maintenance. And even with the current cancellation of phase 2 of the project, phase 1 is still a massive project.
I agree, very complex and complicated. There is no doubt the HS2 project's immense size and complexity indeed present significant challenges. Neil, Mott MacDonald's use of digital solutions, including that parametric design and digital models you just spoke, and a common data environment showcases an innovative approach. This is the first time I heard on this podcast to manage and optimize the project's design and construction process effectively. To talk more about your role, could you discuss your role as a divisional railway director and how it contributed to your holistic understanding of rail industry?
So it's a really, really interesting question, and it was really a turning point in my career actually. So for 12 or 13 years within Mott MacDonald, I worked very much on very technical projects, a range of different projects. My background was a materials engineer to start with, but in 2012 I got the opportunity to lead our UK rail, part of our UK rail business, and that was a really great opportunity for me. I'd never really worked in the rail sector to that level before, and I was introduced to a great team of people covering many of the rail systems disciplines that you talk about on this podcast. And the key takeaway for me was very early on I realized that railways fully integrated systems, so you've got many multiple disciplines that need to work together. So that system integration, those different systems coming together, was really essential to the effective and efficient delivery of railways. And that was a light bulb moment for me, I suppose, very early on when I took on that role. And it also highlighted to me it was also important that you brought those teams together at various parts of the project cycle, all the way from design, construction, integration, all the way through to commissioning. I was blessed with working with some fantastic people across the rail sector, and it also opened a whole new community across the world to me as well. As I mentioned earlier, I think the rail community is very close and friendly, where people make long-lasting relationships over their careers. And as I've mentioned before, since I've been involved in the rail industry, made some really great friends. Many of them have appeared on your podcast, and that's my key takeaway. What a great set of people we've got in the sector.
I do agree, 100%. I do agree. This experience underscored the collaborative and tight-knit nature of the global rail community, and even I have made lots of friends in this industry. After our discussions on key projects, let's discuss on its long-standing impacts post-delivery of the projects. For example, sustainability is a crucial aspect of transportation today. How have you promoted sustainable transport solutions during your career, and what impact do they think they have on the industry?
That's a great question, and I'm so glad you answered it. And I think for everybody now, I think the climate emergency is very well understood and acknowledged. And actually, the transport sector is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. Road transport makes up the most of these emissions. Railways can provide and does provide a low carbon alternative to the combustion engine. It's affordable and can be reliable, as a public rail and metro transport is not available to all those. So we've got to recognise that actually if we want to move closer to low carbon, improve the sustainability of our transport networks, we need to focus in on public rail or metro transport, but make them accessible to more people. So most of my career has been spent promoting projects that provide people with the ability to access reliable and affordable transport solutions. Doing so not only reduces carbon and greenhouse gas levels, but reduces congestion and carb dominance. And this is one of the key areas that the world is looking at, is reducing greenhouse gas levels, improving air quality and reducing noise pollution as well around the world. But by going there, it also helps with job creation and economic benefits. It also improves health and well-being of people as well as the natural environment. And I think placemaking, I think many of the projects that I get involved in around the world, the rail sector is a catalyst to making places better quality of lives, better access to all sorts of services, be them health services, work opportunities. So I've been involved in designing public transport, rail and systems in the UK, Australia, Canada and the US and Europe. One of the most important parts of being involved in these projects, from my perspective, is sharing what you've learned so that others can benefit from your experience. And I think certainly looking at sustainability and sustainable travel for me is what we should all be doing in our work.
Exactly, you're doing that, Neil. Sharing your knowledge and experience from projects across different countries is invaluable for advancing sustainable transport solutions. Exactly, that's what we're doing here. Neil, as you're already doing here on this platform, knowledge sharing is important for professional growth. I completely agree with that. How have you facilitated knowledge sharing within Mott MacDonald's transportation division and beyond?
Yeah, so you've touched on something that I'm really passionate about here, and that's knowledge sharing. And that's why I think your podcast is such a great thing, because it shares people's experiences and it makes things real for people as well. So I think that is important for growth, for your own growth. It helps the industry to improve and to help deliver better outcomes for people that use transport networks that we all design, build, commission or operate. So I think there's some really good examples that I'm aware of where we've been delivering this knowledge sharing on projects. And I think you've mentioned two projects that I'm particularly keen on, Crossrail and HS2 in the UK. Both have learning legacy websites which bring together a collation of all of the good practice, lessons learned, innovation from those two major programs. And really what they are focused on is raising the bar in industry and showcasing best practice. And I think that those learning legacies aim to share knowledge, insight through means of case studies, technical papers, and providing those lessons and recommendations to help others. I find them an invaluable source of knowledge. So in addition to sharing these with colleagues, we also hold knowledge sharing workshops within our business where we come together to share experiences and lessons on projects. So for me, it's about how we share that knowledge, not just at the end of a project, but during a project. And I usually find actually doing that face to face helps build a learning culture across the business. And that's what we're all about within Mott MacDonald. It's how do we learn and take that learning to the next project.
Wow, Neil, that learning legacy website which you just mentioned, is it only within Mott MacDonald or anyone can have access to it?
So both the Crossrail and the High Speed 2 learning legacy websites are open to all. They are so you can access all of the information there. It's a free access.
Wow, thanks for sharing, especially your thoughts on this face-to-face knowledge sharing forums helps foster a culture of learning within business. I think these type of forums have declined quite a bit after COVID. Going back to your profile again, thought leadership is highlighted in your profile. Could you elaborate on how you have championed thought leadership in the global transport sector and the changes it has brought about?
So yeah, I would go back to the Decarbonizing Transport report that we talked about earlier as an example, how we've used thought leadership to help visualize how the transport sector can improve people's lives. And I think it's bringing those complex concepts to life and visualizing. In terms of thought leadership, we also used roundtables as a way of bringing thought leaders together to share their ideas and how to improve the sector. But I found that when you bring people together, don't just include transport professionals. So, for example, we had a recent roundtable to explore the emerging impact of High Speed 2 on health outcomes. So rather than just talk about the transport elements to it, we brought experts together from local government, from transport bodies. We had urban growth companies in the room, we had universities, and we had people who worked in hospitals. And by bringing together a whole variety of different people from different backgrounds, you provide quite a rich, rounded and quite frank discussions as well. So for me, that thought leadership piece around how do we bring all of these great people together, it's not just about great transport leaders, it's about how we bring all these different elements together to sort of look at a whole range of different things. As I said, health outcomes was one. They're similar sort of things around the environment. So it's not just talking to people in the transport sector, but bringing the environmental people along, bringing people from local communities along to discuss some of their issues as well. So I think that thought leadership is quite an important piece to share from around different people.
To put this in one word, because I love quotes a lot, so I was trying to put something: inclusive approach leads to comprehensive and candid discussions. Now, building and maintaining a relationship is a key part of your role as well. Can you describe particularly challenging client relationship you have managed to turn around into a successful collaboration?
These are all very good questions. I can see why your podcast is so popular, because I think the quality of the questions is fantastic. So reflecting back, we had for many years, we had done a lot of work with one of our biggest clients, but it was a very transactional relationship. We would bid for some work, we would win it, we would deliver it, and then we would move on. And this worked well, but that relationship started to deteriorate when a couple of our projects did not go as planned. The client began to impose design changes at short notice, but did not change programs. So this carried on for several months, and the relationships began between the client and our teams deteriorated, leading to some contractual disputes. So I was brought in at the time to mediate between the teams. It quickly became apparent to me that they weren't listening to one another, something as simple as that, and didn't really appreciate each other's challenges. So it became clear that the client had their funding reduced, so had to deliver the design less than the original budget. Once this became clear, I brought the teams together to work out how the design could be completed more efficiently at a lower cost. This included putting off some elements of the design which were not time critical. So by bringing those teams together to work the problem collaboratively with a common purpose, they were able to work out a solution that delivered the design on time and below the new budget. So for me, this also gave confidence to the client's funders that they were able to control the project and allowed them to recover the remaining budget the next financial year. So this was a good example of where we brought teams together. It also opened up a conversation with the client's chief exec officer and their chief financial officer. We were able to bring the potential solutions to them, which meant that they could then go back to their funders and renegotiate and increase their funding settlement for the following financial year. So again, a great example for me, I think, of how you build those relationships, but the key part to it is listening, trying to appreciate the other person's perspective.
Beautiful. It is a great example, Neil. Wow. It's like a refresher on the importance of collaboration approach. Moving to the next question. As the key account director for transport for London, what strategies do you employ to ensure that Mott MacDonald's consistently aligns with TfL's evolving goals and visions?
I was the key account director there for about 5 years, and over that time I was able to build relationships with 3 of the TfL commissioners and their executive teams. I found that these relationships were essential particularly during the difficult times of the COVID-19 lockdowns, the challenges that were associated with the delays in the Crossrail project as well. So for me, being close to the senior team allowed visibility of their approaches to these challenges and access to how they evolve their goals and visions to deal with them, because as you can imagine, COVID threw a big rock in the pond and disturbed a lot of clients' goals and visions. But the overall goal for Transport for London, which is to deliver on the Mayor's vision for a city for all Londoners and helping to create a greener, fairer, healthier and city, that aligns really well with our own Mott MacDonald's own purpose, which is to improve society by considering social outcomes in everything we do. So my role really in that role with TfL was to ensure that TfL were aware of our purpose and how it aligns with their own goals and vision. And this included highlighting some examples of where we and TfL were working together and applying these visions in their everyday work. So for me, the strategy that I employed, as well as listening very closely to TfL, was it's how we can align our goals, our visions with their goals and with their visions.
Great strategies. Clearly, you have deep understanding of your clients and people, Neil. Looking ahead, that emerging trends or advancements in the rail transportation industry, do you find most exciting, and how do you envision your role contributing to their implementation?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, the climate emergency is the key issue of our time. And it's the exciting thing for me is that the rail and transport industry have an important role to play in helping to reduce carbon, as I mentioned earlier, and achieve the net zero targets of governments around the world. So I think we've got a really important part to play in this huge challenge. And I think transport also has a very important role to play in improving people's lives. So we must relentlessly focus on using our technical excellence and digital innovation to transform our clients' business and the communities they serve. That's really what I see as being the most important thing, how we look at that. So I think the emerging trend and the advancements in rail really have got to focus about how we address this climate emergency.
I couldn't agree more. Addressing the climate emergency and promoting sustainable transport solutions is not only a global imperative but also a means to enhance people's lives. So, lastly, what is your one piece of advice to our listeners, please?
So I think reflecting back on my career, it's been a phenomenal team effort. I've really enjoyed working with many people, and I've mentioned earlier, people in the rail sector. It's like a family. So my one piece of advice would be surround yourself with good, positive people who will help you learn, help you grow, and develop you as you progress through your careers. And for me, the thing that's most important for, as well as working with great people, is have lots of fun.
Absolutely. Invaluable advice for a fulfilling career. Neil, thank you for your time today and for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
I believe everyone listening to this podcast has got something to take away from today's discussion. If you like this podcast, please listen, follow, and share this podcast within your network. If you believe we should be sharing your story or someone within your network, there is a railway leader who should be here sharing his or her contribution to this industry, contact me on railway transportation systems at gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. See you next fortnight. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourself.